Welcome to the We Only Sing When We're Winning.
We're professional. We're professional.
Okay.
Right, we'll cut that out. We'll cut that out.
No, we don't need to, it's fine. Let's go.
Oh, no, God, no. Right.
Okay, ready? We're doing this. Okay. Hi guys, welcome to the We Only Sing When We're Winning podcast. The second week we're doing this, and there's plenty coming up in today's podcasts that you can look forward to. We're going to be talking about blogs that have gone up on the website this week. Gareth, Josh and Charlie have all posted. We're going to have a debate on some of the worst Premier League transfers that we can remember. We're going to do the next round of the quiz, which is going to be all based around emojis. You might have seen earlier on the page, if you're listening to this, that I put the roundup on the blog. And we're going to look forward to what's going to be coming in the next week on We Only Sing When We're Winning as well. But first, to start us off, we're going to have a quick discussion about the news stories, the big news stories of the week. Clearly, quite a slow week with no football on, but I thought we could start with having a discussion about how some European leagues have decided to cancel this season. What are your views on that, guys?
From what I understand, most of them haven't really had a choice on it. The Dutch government announced that they were going to ban all public events until September the 1st. So the Dutch league had to then sort of say, yeah, we can't continue if you're going to do that. And then the French leagues are in a very similar position, from what I understand.
Yeah, I think it kind of plays to we were talking about last week about the knock-on effects into future seasons as well. So if you know that you're not going to be able to do anything for at least another 4 months, just knock what you've got on the head now. Find a way of declaring how you... And the problem with the top leagues as well is that you've got the European places to think about as well. Like, no promotion or relegation is fine, but who are you going to then have representing you? Because Europe is such a big cash cow, they've got to have someone. So, yeah, I think they've got time now to work that out.
I saw one of the strategies they were proposing in France was to take the table from the midway point of the season, which would be quite a controversial.
From the midpoint?
Midpoint?
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why they would do that, because everyone would have played each other only once, but someone's going to cry up about that. There's going to be more. There's going to be more crying about that than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it should be possible to find a solution. I mean, okay, there are always going to be winners and losers. You know, with my Exeter hat on, if you were to do it on a point per game basis, it would mean that Exeter, I think, would just miss out on the fun promotion spot, and because Cheltenham would overtake us with their game in hand, which would be frustrating. But I do think that it might be workable in some format, because you look at cricket, which is another sport that I really enjoy. And when you've played most of a cricket match but can't finish it, well, I mean, you come up with a mathematical formula to decide the result. And if it can work in that sport, I don't see why it can't in football as well.
The one thing that I'm kind of leaning towards now is there was some suggestion put forward that every game that hasn't been played is declared a 0-0 draw. That way you've kind of got a completed league table and everyone's kind of dealt with fairly, which I think is, of all the suggestions I've heard, I think is the fairest one.
Is it fair in terms of the fact that, say, you've got two teams who are level on points and one team's ahead of them because of goal difference, but their remaining set of fixtures are theoretically easier than the sides above them, and they get relegated because everything's declared a 0-0 draw when they would reasonably feel that they had a chance to win more than the team above them? Everybody
has to play each other twice, though.
Exactly, so, but in your situation, everyone's not playing each other twice.
Well, no, that's true, but I struggle with this one where teams say, "Yeah, but we've got easier fixtures. We could have won those." Well, yeah,
absolutely. There's no guarantee in football.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and the fact that you can't really just start sort of trading on what ifs. You had the games. If you didn't win the games you've had, then that's kind of on you as well.
I mean, I almost feel as though arguing about the exact way of doing it is almost the wrong debate to have. I mean, pretty much anything you go for, there's going to be some unfairnesses in it. There's going to be some winners. There's going to be some losers. I almost feel like the first debate we should have is whether or not we are going to complete the season in the first place. Because from what you hear coming out of the Premier League, they don't want to do that. They want to carry on, finish the season. They're talking about potentially taking, 1,000 tests a week away from the key workers in the front line to use on footballers to make sure that they haven't got it. And for me, sort of the first thing is whether or not you decide to do that. And for me, it should be a big no, at least for the foreseeable future. What do you think?
No, you can't, because you take, well, first of all, you're taking tests away from people that actually need them. But it's just such an unnecessary risk. If you null and void the league, I don't necessarily agree with how they've done it in other places where they've null and voided it already when there's still time to decide. But you haven't finished the league. It's like Liverpool fans going, "Oh yeah, but they're going to take the league away from us." Yeah, but you haven't won the league.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't mathematically won it at this point.
And
thanks to Watford.
And the other point that I wanted to make here, and I particularly had you in mind with this, Charlie, is that I almost feel like it's so disrespectful to teams in, teams in non-league, teams in women's leagues that have already had their matches like made null and void. I think the message that sends out to the teams that have worked so hard over the past few months, teams that have already sort of mathematically been promoted, have now been told, no, it doesn't count. The message that sends out is, well, none of what you did matters at all. You you just have to do what you're told. Meanwhile, the Premier League, we're going to work out a solution for those guys because the money talks, whereas you don't matter. And that, I think, is a problem.
Well, this was kind of the view I was putting forward last week, where it does make people feel like that, for them to say, in the official record book, what you have done this season does not count. But at the end of the day, it has happened. You can't take that away. And from what I've read on forums and such, the general consensus is that the FA have acted far too quickly and far too rashly in null and voiding everything. But leagues were consulted, and if you look, or if it's shown, there is a reasonable split for teams that wanted to null and void everything and teams that wanted to do points per game. So there was no clear consensus. Stop me if you've heard that one before.
And I think particularly at those sorts of levels, it's almost I think almost what becomes the most important thing is what's actually in the best interest of those clubs to survive, because there are going to be clubs that are going to really struggle. We've already seen in the last few days that the AFC Field women's team has gone under, and I think that particularly for women's football, that's going to be a real problem. And I think that the problem that we have with this debate is that the focus is all going to be on, what the Premier League does, when the Premier League is going to come back. But the reality is, whether we're talking weeks, months, or even years, those clubs are probably going to be okay. Whereas for some people, their club potentially, you don't know whether it's going to come back, or if it does, sort of what state it's going to be in. And I think we really need to pay more attention to that and less on what the Premier League wants.
Oh yeah, more clubs will fold.
And it's not like the FA and all the leagues can't actually use this, it's a horrible term, but to their advantage. You've got a situation where I think there's about 400 games in English football that hasn't been played yet. But the table is roughly where it's going to be at the end of the year. So we know for a fact that Leicester in third place in the Premier League can't win the title. So you can rule them out from that. So there could be all this money schemes where they do playoff games between positions that will actually matter. So you could put it on free-to-air television. You could have a playoffs between the clubs in the playoffs, or who could be in the playoffs. Get all of this interest generated around football again. You're not having to play all the 400 games. You're just simply taking matches between teams that are already there. Some teams will say it's not fair. If Man City and Liverpool play each other in a playoff for the Premier League title and Man City win, there will obviously be a lot of complaints on Liverpool sides. But at the same time, it's a fair way to do it. There's very little risk to the public, and it gets a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly worth solutions. As you say, it certainly generate a lot of interest, and when we're talking about the fairness question, I mean, there's no way that you're going to make everyone happy, but at least then everyone has got the chance to play, and what happens then will be decided on the football pitch. I don't see how you can get fairer than that.
The way to do it would be to take inspiration from Germany, perhaps, where you have teams that get relegated straight out, but the teams that finish just above the relegation zone, just outside the promotion zones in the league below, face off.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we have the 18th place team in the Premier League currently playing the third place team in the Championship? Yes, it gets rid of the idea of playoffs. So the top three in the Championship will play the bottom three in the Premier League, and whoever wins those games stays up, gets promoted.
It's the cynical point, but that doesn't generate enough money. Like the Championship playoff final was called the richest game in football for a reason, because it's just been allowed to get to that point.
But having said that, though, the fans, I mean, with football exploits us fans enough as it is, but how much would you pay for an exclusive stream of it?
What, me as a fan?
If you West Brom were involved in a one-off match against Norwich to be promoted, and you were offered the chance to basically be there in your living room, you'd pay to see it, wouldn't you? No?
Wow.
Martyn, you would for Forest.
Sure,
yeah, absolutely.
The one that I haven't heard anything about, though, is the FA Cup, because that's been suspended at the quarter-final stage. So I worked this out, and assuming that they said, right, there will be no winner of the Cup this year, which is probably going to happen. So that means that the semi-finals and the final won't get played. I looked at the amount of prize money that would leave on the table, and then if you divided it equally between all of the 735 clubs that have played in the Cup this season, right from the top teams down to the extra prelim round, each club would get £15,000 of that prize money, and that's sort of what's left. Now, obviously, for the top clubs, that's a drop in the ocean, but for some of the clubs that have already folded or on the brink of folding,
it's the difference between survival and not.
Yeah, they'll keep them going.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why are we not? Why are we not talking more about things like that, rather than whether the Premier League's coming back in 6 weeks or not?
And then if that happens, I've just looked up all the 8 teams left in the Cup are Premier League teams. But if that happens, then there should be a pact done by the Premier League teams and the Championship teams, or at least the top half Championship teams, to put all of their share into the lower league clubs that are going to fold.
Won't happen.
No, never happen. But
no, and if I'm honest, I'm starting to get a bit bored of all this discussion of, when's the Premier League? I don't care.
Yeah,
it's not the thing that we need to be prioritising right now.
I mean, I think we are of one mind with that, and also I think that we've not had anywhere near enough discussion about the women's game as well, because there are going to be a lot more teams like Field that end up folding, and it's going to be something that probably a lot of the people who don't follow it closely aren't really going to notice that much. But in reality, it's going to set football back potentially.
Absolutely. And I think the bigger point here is that actually it's been very irresponsible to resume football. It's irresponsible that everyone's even having discussions about it.
Completely. But again, and I'm flogging a dead horse here, but you know exactly why, because it's come out that if the Premier League doesn't complete by, the 15th of July or something, then they're liable for almost £1 billion of that TV contract going back. And the problem is that the way that the modern footballing economy works, a lot of teams will have budgeted that for that money and already spent it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can't afford to give it, to not have it, because they've already spent it.
I also think it's worth bringing up sort of the economy of the Championship as well, because there's been a lot of interesting stuff about that that's come out, and just the obscene amount really that clubs have to spend if they want to chase the dream and, let's be honest, the riches of a place in the Premier League, and they're overstretching themselves enormously. There's an unnamed player in the Championship this season that's apparently on £68,000 a week, and you're gonna get an awful lot of. I mean, we're seeing Championship clubs furloughing their staff. it's going to be an enormous hole for a lot of those teams because they're dependent on the TV money and they might not be getting it.
Yeah, well, have you seen what's happened to Colchester down League Two this week?
I
they've released
that. And to be honest, it sounds like actually that might be a decision that a lot of clubs are going to have to take to release a few of their players in order to keep going.
Yeah, and just to take it back to the non-league, to the National League for a minute, they've come out with the statement about how that they are ending the season here, and they've said that they're making this decision now to allow clubs to make as more of a prudent business decision as possible, rather than leave them hanging on to whether they're going to be playing more football or not. End it now so they can work out contracts and financial deals and sponsorships and what have you.
It's going to be a very uncertain time for a lot of footballers who are out of contract this summer, because the way it's going to go is teams are going to have smaller squads, and even for those players who do manage to find new clubs, they're probably not going to be on anything like the wages that they've been on before.
I think it'll also be really interesting to see if the Premier League did come back. If a Premier League club has agreed a contract for a player to join them on the 1st of July, would they be eligible to play in the rest of the season? So the example that comes to mind is Hakim Ziyech, who joined Chelsea, and he said, I am a Chelsea player on the 1st of July, that's it. So when the season comes back, is he eligible to, or if the season comes back, more to the point, would he be eligible to actually play in those remaining games?
I mean, yeah, if they've signed a contract, but contracts are only ever worth the paper they're written on. So, there's nothing to stop Chelsea turning around on the 29th of June and going, actually, we can't afford this right now. Bye.
And I also think I've heard discussion, and I hope this is true, that actually there's going to be rules put in place to limit the transfers that a club can do that have placed their staff on furlough, because it does seem to be completely ridiculous that you say to the taxpayer, right, you've got to pay for our kit men, our cleaners, our ticket office staff, and then a couple of months later you're going and you're spending millions of quid on the next shiny toy. That shouldn't be allowed.
I don't think they're going to, purely for the reception it's going to get. We've seen kind of how fans have dealt with it quite well, actually.
But this is the Premier League. He's genuinely talking about taking 1,000 tests away from key workers a week. That's talking about actually letting the Saudi Arabian government take over Newcastle. I don't think they really care about their image.
Yeah, but that's the league, not the clubs. And the clubs will care. And if they care to the point where 5,000-10,000 fans suddenly aren't turning up, they'll notice that.
The clubs care about it so much that even Daniel Levy changed his mind on it.
Yeah, quite.
So, in fact, Norwich are the only Premier League club now to confirm they're going to furlough, aren't they? And Norwich are in severe danger of playing next season in the Championship anyway.
Well, I mean, to be honest, unless you null and void the league, they will be.
Yeah, exactly. So we could go on and on about it. The reality of the situation.
On to the next topic.
Yeah,
I think we should. The next thing I had in mind was talking about the blogs that have gone up this week on We Only Sing When We're Winning. Does anyone want to talk about the blog that they put up? Take some questions from the rest of us?
I'll go. I've put up 2 this week. My first one was about how the past few years I've not been going to Goodison, so about how I follow matches, a few little anecdotes from there about listening to radio, following matches on CFAX, that's how old I am, and 3 p.m. Saturday TV shows. And then the second one, I was looking at what football can do to embrace more of a vegan diet, and the arguments surrounding that to do with the environment and to do with the climate. And I was quite proud of that one. So if you want to give that one a read, it's currently top on the blog. Go have a look at it. It's called Football's Changing Climate. Should football clubs embrace a vegan diet?
And I'll jump in here because the article that I put up is actually connected to the second one that Gareth talks about, because I'm starting a series of my guilty footballing pleasures, the clubs that I've been to and visited that although that I'm not a fan of, they're clubs I really like. And the first article I did was about Forest Green, who of course are the world's only vegan club. So I wrote a piece about my experience watching them and why they've actually grown on me. And I can't say that I'm, as good an environmentalist as you are, Gareth, but I certainly admire how different they are from the average lower league football club, and the diversity they bring to it, I think, is something that we really should we should all be very happy about.
Josh did kind of underplay that then. His article actually states, I feel it's important to start by proclaiming that I am no eco-warrior. So he's downplaying that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I may have overstated that a bit. I don't think I'm particularly, anti-environment. I enjoy watching Astra programs. I am actually quite, I don't like using more energy than I'm supposed to. But yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not coming at it from a, Greta Thunberg point of view. It's not just, you don't have to just be an eco-warrior to like Forest Green.
I know, I was just winding you up.
I was trying to make.
Yeah. Also, Charlie put up one this week.
Did I? I was just trying to work out whether I did that before.
No, it was after the last podcast.
Was it after?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I've started talking about my ground hopping journey, going back to the first game I went to, which was over 15 years ago. The first ground I went to, which was Tamworth, of all places. Sort of recounting my memories of that game. Because it was a different time, a very different time, and it kind of brought back a lot of different memories of that and how different it is to the modern game. So that's worth a read if anyone's a fan of a bit of more of an emotional, nostalgic read.
And it's quite interesting actually how we do get these themes that have cut across all our articles, because I certainly noticed in both of Gareth's this idea of actually how different sort of football is now compared to what it was when we started supporting 20 odd years ago.
I think the four of us are getting old now, and nostalgia is starting to overtake hope and optimism, isn't it? Yeah. And I suppose that's funny because my second one was more about hope. But I think the point about Charlie's one is that Charlie has been to so many grounds. He's been to grounds in Asia, in Russia, which is its own continent, really, and more than any of us here in England. And yet his journey started at a very humble, local location for him. Yeah. And that's quite nice, really, I think.
Yeah, I remember we were rewriting our biography parts of the blog, and Josh, for example, can remember Forest games when he was yay high, and I didn't have that. I wasn't being taken on the terraces most weekends. In fact, I didn't even watch a game of football on the telly until I was 6, 7 at the very least. And first game I was.
I think we worked this out once. I've been to more West Brom games than you have.
I think you might well have done, yeah.
He's been to more Japanese games than you.
Yeah. But no, I did want to say, Charlie, and I mean no disrespect to anyone else, I'm including myself in this, but I thought your article was the one I enjoyed the most out of any of us, because I just think that every football fan has a story like that, sort of their first games or their first memories, sort of why they fell in love with it, and I think there was something quite special about it. So yeah, I mean, I really hope that people want to read all our articles this week, but definitely click on that one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always said this, that as long as it's not 0-0, I actually don't really care what happens on the pitch. For me, it's the whole experience.
Can be exciting.
Haven't been in my experience. The last 2 I've had have not been good at all. But yeah, for me, there's way more to it than actually what happens on the pitch. And certainly as we get to the point where things tickets are getting more expensive and travel is getting more expensive, you want to get as much value for your money as you can. So for me, it's much more about how it makes me feel, and that sort of memory and that story I can take away from it.
Well, I thought when this all comes back, you should definitely try the Women's Super League, because I know before you went to Japan, we went to non-league games together, and I was pretty surprised actually by how expensive a lot of non-league games were. Sort of a lot of the time, you wouldn't get much change for 20 quid, whereas I remember going to watch Yeovil Man City in the WSL a couple of years ago, and I think it was a final in, and you're seeing like some of the best players in the country.
Yeah, well, I did it a bit in Japan. I went to quite a few women's games actually, the sort of at different levels of the pyramid there, and for the relative amount of money you pay, it's just as enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone to go and do it. The pyramid in the women's game is now getting so developed to the point that there's a good 4 or 5 tiers to it. So there will be games within a reasonable distance to wherever you are.
I think one of the major changes, do you think, that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years then, the move towards greater visibility for the female game?
And it's something that I really hope isn't undermined by this, because I certainly could see it happening. I mean, I think even the WSL teams are going to be in real trouble because of this. And I think that it's something that, I mean, even though we have a very small platform, we still should use it to raise awareness, to make sure that actually, try and ensure that doesn't happen.
It would be really good at some point to try and get a voice on the blog, whether it's on our Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, or actually a blog itself from someone who's actually involved in women's football at the moment, and see how it actually is from the inside. So if there's anyone out there who wants to share their stories, get in touch with us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at We Only Sing Blog. We have a contact page on our blog as well. Come to us with your stories. We'll give you a platform to speak.
Very good.
Anything to add about our blogs this week?
I'll just give a little plug in that I'm going to be carrying on my
number 2.
And funny enough, it's going to touch on a topic we've already mentioned tonight, the Dutch League. I'm going to be talking about Den Haag, like the wonderful job that Pardew did keeping them up.
That's 2 teams now he technically hasn't relegated. Mine being one of them, Den Haag being the other.
Yeah, and
I like how we went from a chat about women's football to Alan Pardew. It's a seamless transition.
Well, there is going to be a vacancy for England manager, so there you go. Alan, maybe get your CV in.
No. Moving on, please, host.
Moving on, let's move on. Shall we have a debate about our worst...
Oh, here we go.
In the worst Premier League transfers ever. And what we're going to do after this, Josh is in control of our Twitter page, and he's going to put up a poll afterwards. So if you're listening, please do vote. Whatever I say, please vote for me. That would be ideal. If not,
He knows this is so bad that he's begging for votes now.
He has no money, but he just wants to vote.
Then it can't be bad. It's probably good if he's begging for votes. He's probably picked like Sadio Mane or something.
what a dreadful waste of money. I mean, come on.
Although I remember him saying back at the start of the season that Timo Pukki was the best striker in Europe.
He was at the time.
He was
He was at the start of the season. He started well.
By Martyn's standards, that's not that bad a shout.
That's not that bad. Come on.
Martyn has come up with some questionable. You described Robert Tesher as
Paul Scholes.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
2 mentions in 2 weeks for him. Wow.
I'm getting Tesher into every single episode. He is the most obscure Nottingham Forest player that I can think of.
Okay, I know this is an in-joke, but I will always remember sort of when Martyn was giving it the talk about Tesher being Scholes, the new Scholes, and then we were watching like Brighton Forest, and Tesher was not good that day. He must have misplaced every single pass. And every time he misplaced a pass, you, Gareth, were clapping and going, "Yes, Scholesy!" And you would have think it would have stopped being funny, but it didn't.
I didn't know I had that in me.
Right, well, let's get Martyn's sizzling hot take on the worst ever Premier League transfer.
Robert Tesher. Sorry.
I've come up with it, and the reason I say this is because he started so well. His history was brilliant, playing for Sporting Lisbon, scored plenty of goals.
Oh no.
Into the Premier League. It's not an Everton player, don't worry.
No.
The only goal he scored in the Premier League was against Everton. Interesting.
It's always the case. Everyone is always the case.
The reason I picked this is because this club put their hopes on him. They spent their biggest sum that summer on this player to try and keep him up. Norwich City.
I know exactly who this is.
Wolfswinkel.
Yeah, Ricky Van Wolfswinkel.
He was on my list, actually.
25 appearances in that season in the Premier League with Norwich. Scored on his debut against Everton. Didn't score another goal after that.
Is it £8 million they spent on him?
£12 million.
£12 million.
12 million.
Well,
I mean,
there's-
Yeah, but presumably that was at a time when 12 million was serious money.
2013, 2014, yeah.
So, yeah.
there is a meme of a guy walking out of an office with a briefcase smiling, and it says "Time for Everton" on it. And that Ricky Volvin, I can't even say it. He sums it up. He absolutely. I don't even want to say his name. I thought when you said Sporting Lisbon, I thought you were going to say Cristiano. I'm going to be honest.
Oh.
Thought it was going to be one of Martyn's horrendous
That would have
shouts.
been a very brave take.
But so I was kind of relieved. But it's
I think it's okay. I was going to go for Falcao with his record £4 million per goal at Man United. The obvious one would have been Ali Dia, but that's too many people have spoken.
that's it. Martyn's given our 4 answers.
Yeah.
Let's move
So,
on. Yeah.
please go to our Twitter account.
Yeah.
Why you vote for me?
That's the best way to make sure he's going to win.
Precisely. Yeah. Can anyone beat me there then?
Ricky Van Wolfswinkel, very good shout. Very good shout. I'm excited to see what Charlie's got.
Well, so I knew I was going to need more than one because I knew that one of you would choose anything that I put. So I had Van Wolfswinkel on there. I had Torres on there.
Torres.
50 million quid, and he was
Chelsea.
already on the decline
Chelsea.
when he was at Chelsea. Yeah, I'm talking to Chelsea, obviously.
Surely that goal in the Champions League, though, that's worth every penny of that.
Harry
50 million.
Neville's reaction.
Anyone want to? No, we won't do that.
I had Falcao as well. Just the records he had at Porto, at Atletico, and then came to Man United, did nothing. Went to Chelsea, did nothing. It's not a surprise that they didn't exercise the buyout clauses they had in both of those contracts. And it was just, I just remember being so disappointed. Again, going back to how football feels to us, I just remember Falcao coming in going, "Oh, here we go. This is going to be fun." And I've actually kept the page up so I can have a look at stats. Let me just bear with caller. Man United, 26 appearances, 4 goals. Chelsea, 10 appearances, 1 goal. 5 goals across 2 seasons. I know there would have been centre halves that scored more than that.
Yeah. Why do we think that is then? That's 2 strikers we've named that big names, big expectations, coming from foreign leagues. Why do you think they failed?
I mean, the Premier League is different, and it is unlike any other league, and that's for us a good thing. But it's, I don't know, you just can't put your finger on it. Like there are just.
I think for some of the names you mentioned, like Falcao, like the Torres move to Chelsea as well. Like these guys had injuries, and I think potentially if you do the yard of pace, then it's going to be really, really difficult to succeed in the Premier League.
Well, I had one more, and if I take someone else's answer, it just kind of goes against Josh's point. There was Di Maria. It was almost 60 million quid Man United spent on Di Maria.
All right, Charlie. You've only got one answer. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, Falcao.
Okay.
Oh.
So
I'll
Van
give that.
Wolfswinkel, Falcao, Gareth.
Josie Altidore,
Oh.
Sunderland. Slightly different because they watched another striker. They watched him play at Hull. They saw him at Hull and they went, yeah, he's our man. We're going to spend 12, 13 million on this bloke and he's going to keep us up.
I mean, I suspect their first at least 5 targets probably turned them down.
Yeah.
Possibly, but then you delve into the loan market. You don't waste that much money on a striker whose record in English football was half a season, 1 goal.
Is it a surprise that Sunderland are where they are now?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, talking about Sunderland, I misheard you last week when you said Premier League. So I hope you'll allow me to say the name I have
No.
come up with, which is Will Grigg.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I've been watching Sunderland till I die. I mean, we're not allowed out, so I've got nothing better to do. And you get the behind the scenes footage of what was actually happening on deadline day, and you always wonder sort of what on earth is going through all these clubs' minds on deadline day. Well, we actually got to see the chairman, Stuart Donald, have a very just a meltdown, essentially. He's just, I mean, I would recommend people to watching it, but there's a scene where the manager calls to say to the chairman, look, Will Grigg is not worth more than £1 million. Don't pay it. He gets to a couple of hours before the deadline, and the chairman goes, right, I'm not going to be playing poker anymore. I'm going to pay them what they want. And he ends up spending over £3 million on a League One striker who's been there now over a year. He scored 5 goals. And for Sunderland in the January transfer window, they lost Madger. If they'd kept him or got a good replacement, they would have gone up last season. And you look at what's happening now, I think Sunderland would much rather now be in the Championship than in League One. And the reason they aren't is because they wasted over £3 million on Will Grigg.
I think that's harsh.
Okay.
Very harsh. I think Will Grigg is a proven League One striker, and actually, if you were going for promotion from League One a year, 2 years ago, and you look at a striker who could get you the goals, Will Grigg would be in your top 5 names.
Yeah, but he hasn't done it though.
Surely if we're throwing this discussion open, Jordan Rhodes has to feature somewhere.
Jordan Rhodes, the man who only ever scores against Forest for Sheffield Wednesday. What is
Not that it bothers him.
Well, actually,
I mean, forget that. Like Gusted, whose scoring record is just abysmal against everyone else. Forest.
Yeah, of course, every game. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so we've got our 4 names. We've got all strikers. That's really interesting that we've all gone for strikers.
Are we accepting Will Grigg in this Twitter poll? We're going to have to change the name of it now.
Okay, well, if you want a Premier League name, I'll go back a bit, actually. I'll pick another striker, but I'll go back to the first season of the Premier League, where Nottingham Forest were deep in relegation trouble. They were going to sign a striker to pull them out of it. They had identified Stan Collymore, but Clough decided not to go ahead with it, and instead signed a chap called Rob Rosario. Forest then went down. So I'll go with Rosario.
Either way, I don't think you're going to win the poll, but you know, excellent. Yeah.
It's interesting. 3 of us have gone for a striker who was identified as kind of being the person to save them from relegation, and didn't ultimately.
I mean, I think its strikers do definitely stand out more because they're the ones that you think are gonna. I mean, they're the big money signings. They're the names. They're the ones that, as you say, sort of teams' hopes rest on. So when they don't do it, it's very noticeable. Whereas I reckon there's probably a lot of other players who are just as worthy of mentions that we haven't included.
If you're a defender and you play badly, you tend to be dropped. The old adage is that strikers are going to score if they get the opportunity. If you're a defender who's playing well, that's it. You're out of the team.
But for a defender, also, it's more important to have consistency because if you're a striker and you have a bad game, it doesn't really matter because every striker has a bad game. Sort of, you can have a bad game, 2 in 3 as a striker and still be all right. Whereas as a defender, if you have a bad game, you've cost your team the match.
Yeah.
So I think strikers will get longer runs than defenders for that reason, and for the fact that they're more expensive. So you want to keep them in and hope that they repay what you paid for them.
It's interesting that we say a 15, 20 goal a season striker is a good purchase, but that might mean they're only scoring 1 in 2, 1 in 3 games.
Yeah, and I think there's been research done into this. Sort of actually for when you're trying to create a team, what's really important is how strong your weakest link is, not how strong your strongest link is. So actually, you'd be much better off spending the money on sort of like an adequate left back or whatever other position is your weakness, and bringing that up to standard rather than going out and buying a star.
As proof of United.
Mm.
They didn't go out and spend. Okay, they got McBurney, they got Robinson, but their championship names, their big signing was Berger in midfield, and that, I mean, has worked out for them, hasn't it? So, whereas you've got Aston Villa spending bags and bags of money, or Fulham the season before on the kind of standout, showy names, attacking names more than anything, and they.
But then if you've got Kim Ream and Alfie Mawson in defence, it doesn't matter. Like you go down.
Yeah. Okay, so there are our 4 names. We're going to put them on Twitter. Well, Josh is going to put them on Twitter after the blog. If you're listening, please do vote. Van Wolfswinkel is the name you're going for, of course. If not, don't bother coming back.
He's not. No.
And we will we'll pick up on that at the start of our blog next week and see if we can come to some kind of consensus on who we think is the worst Premier League transfer ever between us. Okay. Shall we move on to the quiz, the second round of the quiz?
No.
You guys got on. So, as I said, I put this emoji quiz on Facebook earlier today. Go take a look if you haven't already. See how many you can do. It's been really interesting to see how Josh, Gareth and Charlie have got on with this. I know they're dying to find out how they've done.
Oh, yeah, so excited.
Without further ado, let's have a look. How did you find it? Was it okay?
It was awful.
It was awful.
Awful.
It was awful.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed spending a lot of my free time looking at it. Yeah.
Because I went over it like when I was when I really should have been working, and yeah, I was hoping I'd breeze through it in a few minutes, and that didn't happen.
No, it was hard. It was hard. There was a lot of. Some of the emojis weren't immediately clear what they were either, and some of them, I think we can all agree, are a little bit of a stretch.
Mm.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, we're old now. We don't use these emoji things, whatever they are.
That's true.
I took
He's
this
getting
off.
his excuses in early, isn't he?
I think rather than having a look at all of them, I'll put the answers up a little bit later, but on the blog. But I think we should have a look at some of the controversial ones where some of you got it, some of you gave wrong answers. You know, there was one of the questions where only one person gave an answer for it and actually got it right.
Oh.
Which one was that?
Oh.
Number 16, which was.
Wait.
I'm gonna have to find this again. Give me a minute. I'm gonna have to load this up again.
I've got it up here. I'm prepared. I know I didn't get that one. So
Hang on. Let me have a look.
Charlie, I'm quite impressed.
What?
Yeah.
hey, well done, Charlie.
Hang on. I'm gonna have to look at what this was and see if I can actually remember what I wrote.
Pretty impressive.
I can't remember what. I'm looking at it again now, and I can't even remember what I wrote.
I think Charlie cheated, guys. So number 16 was actually Ricardo Quaresma.
Oh.
Which Charlie somehow pulled out of the bag. I'm not sure how that happened.
Well, I went with the car.
Yeah, I get that now.
There was from one of the other ones. The bread emoji was dough, I think.
It was Doe,
So
yeah.
I went Cardo, and then I went car because I think I'd been looking into like worse signings as well, and Quaresma had appeared in a few places, and I think it was kind of just fresh in my mind anyway.
Pulled out of the bag.
That's really impressive.
10 was the one where there was the most debate, and you each gave a different answer.
Number
Yeah,
which one? Sorry?
because I think I went for Lucas Moura for that one, which I'm not sure is correct.
It's
But
Luka Modric, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I thought it was Lucas, but
Oh,
And Charlie went for Luca Toni.
Oh, yeah, so it is Modric, isn't
it
it?
is Modric.
It is Luka Modric, yeah.
Oh, what?
Luka Modric, yeah, absolutely. I'm really surprised by number 7 that you didn't get it, Charlie. I thought that was the easiest one.
Oh, I liked 7.
No, I couldn't. I just couldn't. Nothing was coming to my mind.
What is it? What is number 7?
It was a tornado.
It's a hurricane.
Oh!
It is a tornado, to be fair. It is a tornado emoji.
to be fair, I thought tornado, I thought whirlwind. So, I mean, I did find it difficult, but yeah, I think it's one of those that when the penny drops,
It drops.
Yeah, you're going to see the look on my face in about 10 seconds when Martyn tells me what it is.
What's another word for a tornado, or like a similar kind of?
That's not going to give him a clue, is it?
Just tell me.
It is. Well, it's a hurricane.
Yeah.
Harry Kane.
I'm guessing me and Josh got that one by
Yes, you did.
yeah.
For God's
Well done, Josh.
sake.
Number 9 was a bit. So I got this from iNews, this emoji quiz, and I thought number 9 was a little bit dodgy in its. So Josh didn't get it. Gareth and Charlie did.
Oh, that's all right.
Mohamed Salah. How did you get that?
Well, I went
Moustache,
with
Mo, salad, yeah.
Yeah, I got salad first, and then Salah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, yeah. I think I put man with a moustache next to a salad, didn't I, in brackets next to that one? Because I thought that was a bit of a stretch, but
Some of these were terrible.
I found that really confusing. I didn't even get what the second emoji was meant to be, and then the first one just seemed like a bloke's face. I had no idea.
I think the favourite answer that I got from this quiz was for number 13.
oh no.
Gareth, sad lion. Superb. I mean, I've just looked at it. Charlie didn't actually get the answer right.
But what I don't get is if you get sad lion, surely from there the answer is obvious.
No,
But
I still don't get it.
You've done the hard bit getting to sad lion.
Not really. There's a sad face and a lion.
What comes?
What do lions have? Like,
I've got it now.
Charlie, where did Falcao come from?
I don't even know.
I think I've just got it as well.
Write something down.
It's Maine, isn't it? It's Marne.
Yeah.
Mane. Yeah.
That is really annoying because it is obvious when you see it.
yeah, like, I mean, the thing is, you did the hard bit.
I'm surprised you didn't get number 8, Josh. You're the only one who didn't get number 8.
Was that Salah?
No, number 8 was the ball with a number 8 on.
Oh, that one. Yeah, no, I was I felt like I should get that. I felt like I should have got it, but I didn't.
Anyone want to put him out of his misery?
Paul Pig Bar, otherwise known as Paul Pogba.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the pig. I saw a chocolate bar. I saw a snooker ball. I was really, really confused. But yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you how you got on. So we'll start out with how many you got wrong.
Okay.
Josh, you got 1 wrong, which was Lucas Moura.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Fair play.
2 wrong, which were Luca, Tony, and Falcao. Gareth, you got 1 wrong, which was Sad Lion.
Oh, that's not bad. Not bad.
However,
Game changer is where you didn't give an answer, so where they were missing.
Oh, God.
Josh, you did not answer for 11.
Oh, wow.
Gareth, you didn't answer for 1 of them.
Yeah.
Charlie, you didn't answer for 2 of them.
is it 2?
At the end of the day, Josh gets 12 points out of 24. Charlie gets 20. Gareth gets 22 points.
Wow.
Yes. I put a lot of time into that. Whew.
Apparently, so I mean, the scores now with Josh got 6 points last week, add the 12, takes him on to 18. Gareth, you had 5 last week. You had the 22 today. That takes you on to 27.
Come on.
Charlie, 9 last week. You had your 20. Takes you on to 29 points.
So
we can
2
say
weeks in, Charlie's still winning.
So Josh is eliminated.
Still winning. Don't worry, Josh. The game is not over. Next week, you've got another. Next week, you can get 26 points. So next week, we're going to do a quiz, which is name the Premier League goal scorer. And like I said last week, I'm going to give you the alphabet. I need you to give the surname of every player with that letter, starting their surname, who has scored the most goals in the Premier League. So start thinking about it. That's the quiz next week. So there will be 26 points on offer next week as well. So
Okay.
by no means has Charlie won this quiz, which would shock us all, I'm sure.
What's the prize?
The prize?
Extra hosting duties.
Yeah, extra. I think that's great, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Presumably by Premier League, we mean since 1992.
We do. So start thinking about it. No cheating, please. I will know if you get some of them that you've cheated. Because they are possible.
Which letters, just so we can have a clue which to avoid? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, which ones are we going to struggle with?
Yeah.
I think you do very well to get E. I think E is the hardest. Yeah.
E,
Just start
right, okay.
on
It's
that.
not Eric Edmond, is it?
Oh, that's a shout. It's not Edmund.
There we go. That's the obscure 2000s footballer of the week reference sorted.
Best goal anyone scored by an obscure.
We need to play this game at some
We
point.
do, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I think next week, the most obscure footballer we can name that everyone would actually be like, oh yeah, I remember him. So not someone that you've just made up or as a football manager regen, but actually someone that everyone would go, oh yeah, I remember him. That could
Charlie
be
Marriott.
Charlie Marriott. Yeah, we did say Premier League footballer.
No, we didn't. No. He's a fox in the net.
Apart from when I'm scoring against him.
Yes, all right.
Go on.
With when he's in goal, you've just got to hit it top corner. He's got no chance.
But yeah,
It's any corner.
or down the middle, to be honest.
Just shoot. You're probably going to score.
Okay, so I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover today. Shall we look forward to what's coming up on the blog this week?
Yeah, go for it.
So it's going to be a rarity. I'm going to be posting this week. I'm going to be posting about my love for football. I'm going to put a positive spin on this COVID situation. So everyone's talking about how, oh, when's the Premier League going to come back? We've spoken about this until the cows come home. I'm going to write an article about why it matters to me that football comes back. So the grassroots level, why football is so important to me, why people who are asking the question, it's only football, isn't it? Well, maybe for professional football, but actually football plays a pretty integral part in my life in terms of playing as well. So I'm going to be writing a little bit about that. That's to come later this week.
Is that because you can't go to a bookie on a Saturday afternoon now?
That's one of the reasons, but I mean, that's the thing, so you'll see. We can talk about this next week. Any other blogs to come this week, guys?
I've got one about Den Haag, and I really enjoyed my visit there a couple of seasons ago, and you know, and I'm going to be writing about that and how much I enjoyed it and why this is a club that means something to me.
Nice, sounds good.
I put 2 up this time, so I think this week is going to be a quiet one for me.
And I'm going to be writing about the 2002 World Cup.
Oh, excellent.
Amazing. That was my memory. When Gareth asked us to memory of football, Papa Doobity up that first game.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I've got so many memories of it, and now that I've actually got enough time to have actually done some proper reading into the tournament itself, it's kind of changed a lot of my opinions and views around it.
If we're talking about obscure footballers, a couple of that Brazil side, Roque Jr., and in goal, Marcos.
So was that
winners?
We were probably all a little bit too young for France '98, so that was probably our first proper World Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was definitely
the 4 of us remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys were, then I was. So.
Yeah.
I remember Euro 2000 a bit.
I don't.
I don't remember it that much, to be honest.
I mean, I maybe I'm a little bit older than some of you. I vaguely remember '98, but 2000 was my first big tournament.
For full disclosure, Gareth is younger than us, like noticeably younger. Josh is then the youngest after that. Martyn and I are both older. Josh is the 3rd youngest out of the 4 of us.
Noticeably younger is only a year younger.
Well, the oldest? What is this all about?
Martyn is actually the oldest.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Martyn is the oldest.
Oh, really? I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah,
Josh is upset. That's jealousy, that is. Josh wanted to be the oldest.
Oh, Josh. Okay, so next week we're going to be, we'll catch up on what's been happening on the blog. And shall we do our obscure footballers next week? The most obscure footballers?
Oh, Charlie's hosting.
Yes. I'm gonna make that, with the exception of the quiz, because we need to have that. That is going to be the bulk of it. Just complete. Like, I am getting bored of all this talk about COVID-19 and how it's affecting football. So, I want to just let's just take it back to something that is much more enjoyable. And what is more enjoyable than talking about obscure 2000s footballers that you haven't thought about in 15 plus years?
Excellent. Like the sound of that?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. Hope you enjoy.